PG&E's monopoly territory is home to 17 million people. It's bigger than most
families already struggle to pay their bills.
PG&E was convicted of 91 felonies.
Really? I mean, what's next?
Greybeard Talks Solar. He is SolarWise.
Welcome to the Greybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is a place where a little knowledge goes a long way toward turning sunshine into some serious savings for you. And today I've got a very, very special show. Urgent alert. We're sounding all of the alarms. Man, this week has been a challenging week because we got the news that the big, beautiful bill that's coming down by the Trump administration is set to axe the 30% federal income tax credit benefit that is attributable to helping most folks save almost a third on the cost of installing solar with a tax benefit that helps to offset that cost. So for those of you that may not be aware, solar, ever since its infancy as an industry, has benefited from an income tax credit benefit, a subsidy to help the homeowners that choose to go solar adopt the clean energy technology of solar by giving some sort of a tax break. So let me give you an example, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. So solar as it exists today, May of 2025, if you buy a system, if you're an owner of a system, so you either pay cash for it or finance it, but you're the owner of the system. Currently, the way the 25D section of the Internal Revenue Code works is that clean energy programs such as solar are eligible for a tax credit benefit. So let's assume that the cost of the system, for our example, is $30,000. That'll make the math easy. So $30,000 solar system if you wrote a check for it to buy it. And presently, the tax credit benefit associated with solar is 30% of the cost. So 30% of $30,000 would be $9,000. So if you bought a solar system in May of 2025 that was a $30,000 solar system, you wrote a check for $30,000. At the end of the year, assuming you've got some tax liability that would work against this, at the end of the year, you would get $9,000 back from Uncle Sam or the Internal Revenue Service as a benefit for purchasing the solar. They're going to subsidize that. So effectively, you get that in one of two ways. It's either going to significantly lessen the amount of tax liability that you have if you owe money, or the alternative is it could significantly increase your tax refund if you're normally associated with getting a refund, or it could be some combination of the two. Without solar, maybe you were set to pay $3,000 worth of tax to Uncle Sam, but now because you bought the $30,000 solar system, not only do you not have to pay the $3,000, but you're going to get in addition $6,000 back as a refund. So in one of those three ways, either significantly lessens your liability, significantly increases your refund, or a little combination of the two. That's how the tax credit benefit currently works. And so if that gets axed, if it's gone, effectively, the simple answer is it's going to make every solar system out there in the United States 30% more expensive immediately to most homeowners. And as you can imagine, that's going to be a significant challenge to the industry. So what I'm going to be sharing today is my thoughts on this change, a couple of pieces of advice that I would recommend that you consider if you've not adopted solar yet, what you need to be doing straight away. And then I'm going to have a few points of warning for you, things to be considerate of and or watch out for as the timing of this further progresses through the end of this year. Because this is not a situation where you can sign up right before December 31st and maintain your tax credit benefit. The way that this tax credit benefit works is the solar system. If you move forward with the solar system, you have to have the system installed before December 31st of this year, and it has to be commissioned live. It has to be operating in order for you to maximize the ability to collect that significant income tax credit benefit. So let's just jump into it. So first things first, this is going to significantly challenge solar adoption in other states of the country. Stated differently, solar adoption in many states of this country only works because of the tax credit benefit. meaning that if solar was 30% more expensive, it just won't pencil. It won't save homeowners money, or the time to cost recovery is going to be so exorbitantly long, it's going to be a disincentive to adopt it. So we're hearing stats like of all of the 50 states, there's only really going to be about maybe 8 to 12 where solar would absolutely still be viable, even if the cost of solar increases by 30% due to the loss of the tax credit. So my fear is it's going to make big installers, the multi-state installers. Examples that come to mind would be Freedom Forever, Sunrun, these companies that are in, maybe all 50 states of the country, but at least a handful, if not a dozen or more. These companies are really going to have to unwind their infrastructure, their assets, their warehouses, their product, et cetera, because I really see that market in some of these other states drying up almost overnight due to this loss of the income tax credit benefit. So little warning out there for those of you that are watching this video that might be in another state. Definitely, solar is never going to be cheaper than it is for you right now, today at current pricing, because getting that 30% tax credit benefit is going to be critical in some states. Now, having said that, for those of you that might be watching the video in California, if your question is, hey, Greybeard, is this going to kill California solar? We don't believe so, not at all. Even with a 30% cost increase, California solar is still going to pencil, because the utilities that we deal with in California are the most expensive utilities in the contiguous United States. The only state that has more expensive energy than California is Hawaii. So solar will still persist in California. It'll still pencil. Solar will always save money versus PG&E, Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric. So that's not as much of a concern. But what will be a concern is what happens to solar installers in California. So let me preface this by saying, I consider solar installers to kind of fall into three broad sizing categories. So the first would be small installers. And we would define a small installer as maybe doing, under 50 projects a month. Maybe they're at 20, 25 solar installations a month. Maybe they're at more, maybe less, but somewhere in that range. I would say a mid-level installer is going to be at least 200, 300, 400 projects a month. And then I would say the largest guys out there are going to be at least 600, 700 projects a month or greater, because they're often throughout all of California and multi-state. So what this is going to do to the industry in general, and then I'm going to follow up on what you need to know to take action for yourself as a homeowner. But what it's going to do to the industry is I'm going to look at two different companies. So first of all, let's take the big companies out there. This 30% loss in tax credit benefit is mostly going to affect them in the unwinding of their assets and leases and real estate holdings and all that stuff, all their crews and staffing, all of that in other states. Many of these guys will most likely shrink their business to the states where it's obvious that solar is always going to continue to save, even with a 30% increase in cost. And so you're going to see those companies retreat. But some of them, in the unwinding and the unsettling of the industry, they may, in fact, go out of business themselves. I think that they got more financial wherewithal, but they also have a lot more risk and a lot more expense associated with their business. Generally, the bigger the companies out there, the more bloated they are with staffing, real estate, things like that, and which trickles down into the cost that you see for quoted proposals. Now, on the opposite end of that, let me be very candid and very frank. There's about 1,000 solar installers in California today, May of 2025. Our expectation, heard some numbers thrown around, but I'm just gonna use the numbers that have been given to me. Nobody has a crystal ball. This is not locked in stone, but I'm just trying to give you some context. If there's 1,000 installers in the state of California, by maybe mid-year 2026, we would expect maybe 300 of them to exist. Stated differently, I've heard forecasting that easily 50% of the industry could go under, and likely 70% of the industry could go under, because the big volume of 1,000 of those solar installers throughout California are the really small guys. And so what you may not realize is the smallest companies out there that do solar installations, Solar Chuck and his truck, a one-guy operation or 2 or 3 guys, or even a company that might have 2 or 3 installation crews. Most of those companies are dependent on cash-only business. The companies that are small, they don't have the length of time in business. They don't have the financial acumen. They don't have the financial resources. They don't have the cash on hand. They don't have the ratings or the reviews to qualify for some of the other programs that are available in solar, specifically leases and power purchase agreements. So many of these small installers are on the front lines of frailty in solar. And dealing with cash-only buyers, our expectation is that there's going to be a huge ramp up in business, almost like imagine a watermelon trying to be sucked through a garden hose, right? That big blob. Or imagine some python eats a pig out in the Amazon, and a day later you got this big thing, this big blob in the middle of the snake. That's what's going to happen. Between now and the end of the year, there's going to be a massive amount of volume of business as people try to get in before the deadline expires. But what will then happen, because we've been through this before a couple of years ago with net energy metering 2.0 transitioning to net energy metering 3.0, what will happen is invariably come January of next year, realistically come December or even November of this year, you're going to start to see that urgency of solar installations completely dry up. And then I think you're going to see crickets. I mean, it's not that solar is not going to be adopted in 2026, but certainly the biggest volume, the artificial deadline here is going to create the biggest volume. And I could imagine that, 1, 2, 3, 4 months into 2026, you're going to have a lot of these companies in a position where maybe they're not viable any longer because they just don't have the cash. They don't have the new sales business. It's just going to completely disrupt them and probably put them under. So we think that the biggest opportunity right now, the sweet spot, if you still haven't explored solar yet, we think the mid-sized guys are the guys that they're positioned directly. They typically have enough buying power and enough experience and enough time in business that they got third-party options. So they've got other resources, other finance companies that they can pivot to. So let me be clear. This is mostly going to affect cash and loan buyers, people that want to finance solar. So the programs out there that are what we call TPO, third-party owned, such as leases and power purchase programs, those programs are going to be unaffected. So we expect that those programs will persist. And the good news is those are some of the cheapest programs available right now for solar. But the challenge referencing small companies is that many of these small companies don't have those options. They're not big enough. They did not get enough scale. They didn't have enough time in business. They don't have enough cash on hand. Because here's what happens if a third-party owned company, so there's three that we work with. I work with a company called Infin. I work with another company called Everbright. I work with a company called Goodleap. Actually, I got 4. I got another company called Lightreach that we work with as well. Those companies, Infin, Goodleap, Lightreach, and Everbright, if the solar installer that installed the system for them goes out of business, they're then now responsible for maintaining the warranty on the system, okay? And so what they don't want to do is have this huge glut of business by working with a whole bunch of small companies that then now expire, go out of business, and now they're responsible for all the maintenance and the management of the system after that fact. So suffice it to say that I think the companies that are in the most precarious position right now are these small guys. Now, this brings to mind another point that I want you to very appropriately consider. Cheaper isn't always better, and better isn't always cheaper, right? So as these small guys expect and know that their time in business may be very much coming to an end, I think that you're going to see some desperation. I think toward the tail end of this year, we're going to start to see some predators and some bad actors and some desperation come out. You may see some unscrupulous tactics. I'll put it to you that way. And it always happens anytime there's some big roiling change. And I think you have far less exposure to that, obviously working with somebody like myself, a broker who's got hands on the ground with specific installers he's worked with for years, versus kind of trying to do this on your own. But just be careful, because there will be companies that come out that are bad actors, that want to be predatory, that want to take advantage of this situation, this condensing of time, and we could see, a lot of that happening towards the tail end of this year. But the mid-sized guys, I don't expect that. So here's what you would need to really take into account if you have not explored solar yet. So number one, make sure whoever you're exploring it with, that they've got the financial wherewithal to be able to exist into 2026. The question I would be asking if I was a homeowner, not knowing anything else about a solar installer, is what's your plan for 2026? How much of your business is cash or finance only? And do you have the ability to do third-party owned systems? Do you have the ability to do leases or PPAs? That one question, do you have the ability to do third-party owned systems, will tell you a lot about that installer and their length in business. And because when these companies onboard them as a new installer with their resources, I mean, it's like the equivalent of an IRS audit, man. They go in, they take a deep dive into them. So if they did not pass, okay, that's worrisome. If they don't have those options, if they pass, that tells you a lot about the financial health of that company. It doesn't guarantee anything. It just means that they're big enough, got qualified, had good enough ratings, enough cash on hand, enough experience, enough Google and Better Business Bureau good reports to be able to qualify for that particular installer's, third-party owned type programs. Because those programs are going to be almost 100% of solar business in 2026. And if you deal with an installer that doesn't have that option, they will quickly go out of business in 2026. So good news is you got solar. Bad news is 3 months later, you got a company that is no longer in business. And let's hope that they did the installation correctly and that you got no problems, because you got no one else to go to, right? So that's one point that I want to be very specific about. The other point I want to be specific about is that as you now may want to research this and endeavor to find some options in solar, especially as this is the last time it's going to be this cheap. This will never be cheaper. This has never happened in the industry. 30% increase. We know it's happening. We know it's coming. So it's never going to be cheaper than it is right now. So if you want to explore it, here's the thing that I would suggest that you do. You got to do it now. Okay? Because as we push later into the year, there's going to be a whole bunch of variables that you can't control, that I can't control, that the installer can't control, that could affect the ability to get this done in time. Because again, the system has to be live and have been commissioned. It has to be operating by December 31st in order for you to be able to take advantage of the 30% income tax credit. So what would be horrendous is you missing that deadline or not getting installed. So here's some things that could happen towards the tail end of the year. Number one, as we get later in the season, you're obviously going to have the challenge of inclement weather. Okay, water and electricity do not mix. We will not be able to do main panel upgrades. We won't be able to do solar installations. If it gets really inclement this winter, that could create delays. Those delays could mean some people, and absolutely will most likely mean some people will miss that deadline. Again, also, you got to understand that with some of these installers, their pipeline is so significant right now and will only increase during the summer. So much so that the bigger the installer, for example, Sunrun, Freedom, some of these big installers, I've found the longer that they take to get the job done. Some of the biggest guys out there might be 5 months to get the job done. They have too many people working with them. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. They don't communicate well, and it just prolongs the installation timeline. And so if we fast forward, if you signed up today and we fast forward 5 months, you're really flirting with maybe not getting this thing done in time. So we like the mid-level guys. Right now, mid-level guys can generally install today in May of 2025, usually install in 5 weeks maybe at the earliest, to as many as 8 weeks as at the latest. And so definitely still a lot of time. But here's some other variables that could throw a curveball into your solar installation plans. Number one, if you want to do a ground mount, ground mounts take twice as long to get installed as a normal roof-mounted solar system. So if you're doing a ground mount, now you've got to elongate the process because there's more engineering that has to be done, more back and forth with the county in terms of the engineering and the designs and the plans for the ground-mounted system. And it's just something that has to be done in stages. The trenching has to be done first, then the racking has to be done, then it can be installed, it has to be inspected. So you got to realize that sometimes property-level situations, for example, here's another one. If you need to replace your roof before you get solar, well, you better get on that now because that's something that has to be done in advance before we can do the solar. So that's another example. Main panel upgrades. If your main electrical panel, for example, is a Zensko or Sylvania panel, both those companies went out of business because their panels are faulty. They cause fires. I don't have any solar installer that's going to want to tie into one of those main electrical panels, so you'll have to get it replaced. replacing your main electrical panel, either because it's a Zenco panel or a Sylvania panel, or because it's too small or too old, that elongates the solar installation process as well. That can add at least 3 or 4 weeks to the installed time horizon. Now, the last thing I want to comment on is what I've talked about a little bit before, the watermelon and the garden hose, or the big fat pig and the snake. And that is that if we see the volume of business that we saw attributable to the transition from NEM 2 to NEM 3, which many are speculating we're going to see more than that business this time with this change, because it's a once never happened before in solar. But if we see that volume of business, what it did with NEM was it really stretched the jurisdictions, the counties and the cities that have to do the permit approvals. It really stretched their resources because they had a 5-fold increase in solar permit volume, right? So most of these counties aren't going to staff up because of a temporary few-month rise in volume. It's just going to take them longer to process through it, longer to digest that watermelon in the hose, longer to digest, crude analogy, that pig in the middle of the snake. So, you know, summer is always going to be a 2 to 3-fold increase in interest versus like spring or winter, because everyone gets the massive utility bills come solar. So everyone starts to call solar installers in the summertime anyway. So that's a natural byproduct of the seasonality of solar. But then add to it this artificial deadline because this big change is occurring later this year, and you're now really flirting with maybe some of the, if let's say it takes 3 weeks right now to get permit approval with, you know, county A, B, C, you know, what if it all of a sudden takes now 8 weeks to get the permit approved with county A, B, C, just because of the volume of business that's coming in, trying to get in before that deadline, before the expiration of those tax credits. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you. This is recent news. I jumped on here to kind of do this urgent alert, but hopefully you find some value in what I'm sharing with you. But if I was a residential homeowner right now that had not yet explored solar, the absolute best thing that I could recommend that you do right now is do it now. Do it immediately. Because there's another advantage that you have, depending on which installer that you deal with. Some of these mid-level guys, most of our installers right now, stocked up on supply of panels and stuff. Which brings me to another point. We could see equipment shortages, right? Because the boats that are coming are coming. You know, there's only so much supply. This is a very short window, but you know, I didn't think about that until just now. Equipment shortages could elongate the installation process as well. But most of the guys that we work with, the solar installation companies, as a solar broker company that we are, they ordered a lot of supply. So some of them have pre-tariff pricing currently on their supply. That'll get sucked up and exhausted quickly. So the sooner that you act, the absolute better. Every day that ticks, every week that ticks along, you're going to flirt with not potentially getting this system installed by the end of the year. And I think that would be an absolute travesty, especially a travesty for most homeowners in PG&E territory, because I guarantee you PG&E is going to laugh all the way to the bank. They're dancing right now in their offices. They're doing a little jig, happy as a lark, because this is the biggest disadvantage that's ever happened to solar since the industry began. And Lord knows that PG&E wants to make more money off more homeowners in California. It's the only way they make money. They're a publicly traded for-profit utility company. So this is a huge, huge win for them. So highest recommendation I can give you right now, get out, get some quotes, get some proposals. We'd love to work with you. If you want to work with us, if you'd like to explore it with us, here's all you got to do. If you text one word, YouTube to 84503, take out your smartphone, go to your texting app, your messaging app, key in 84503, text YouTube to us. We'll be in contact. That's how you get our information. We'll be in contact with you straight away once you do that. But that will get the ball rolling. We'll start to explore options with you. We can get you proposals, get you quotes, get it quickly. Show you what because it'll never be cheaper than right now. It'll never be cheaper than right now. So definitely explore that. So text YouTube to 84503. And here's the last thing I'll say. Okay, I'm excited about what's to come. I think this is going to be a challenge for many folks in the industry, but I do think that there's going to be a select few installers. I think this is going to condense or consolidate the industry. I think for the right companies and for the right installers out there, this is going to be a tremendous increase in the volume of business, or a tremendous increase in their market share. I'm definitely going to still be around in 2026. We're not going anywhere. We'll pivot to power purchase programs because nothing will compare to them come 2026, but definitely get out there and see if you can explore solar and start saving money right away with a cash or a finance system. So that's it for me today on the Greybeard Talks Solar channel. Please smash the like, share, and subscribe buttons if you're so inclined. Please help us spread the word to other folks, because I believe there's going to be some people that have no idea that this change is coming. And I guarantee I'm going to get calls in October or November, and they're going to be heartbreaking calls for the people that are interested. And I'm just going to have to say, there's just no way to get that done. There is an alternative, but there is no way to get you a cash or finance system installed in time before the end of the year. So please help us spread the word. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And the last thing I'll say to you is here, stay charged, stay informed. Keep shining, my friends, and I'm going to be back here same time, same place next Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific to launch another video. Thank you for watching the Greybeard Talks Solar YouTube channel.
Thanks for listening to SolarWise, Greybeard Talks Solar. Please visit our website, solarwiseco.com, to learn more, and we will see you next time on SolarWise.